From the OU TV Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, California, this is Brief News Brief, a brief look at today's trending news topics, proudly combating the thought police since 2016. Here's your host, James Heaney.
I'm James Heaney, and this is your Brief News Briefing. We're back, and we're glad to be back. It was a crazy week to miss, a wild week. Last week on Tuesday, in fact, there were two simultaneous events. One in which Paul Manafort, the former campaign manager for President Trump, was found guilty on 8 counts by a jury. At the exact same time, Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, and most would call fixer, pled guilty to 8 counts as well. Not a good week for the president. Trump went on Fox News to try and respond. He completely denied that Cohen was his fixer, saying, "Well, I don't know if he was a fixer. I don't know where the term came from." He also said that what Cohen did was not even a crime and claimed that the payments weren't campaign finance. Yet perhaps the most outrageously thing he said was that he suggested criminals admitting crimes to call out higher-ups in the organization, otherwise known as flipping, should be considered illegal. For 30 or 40 years, I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, then they get 10 years in jail and they flip on whoever's next highest, whoever the next one is, as high as they can go. It ought to almost be outlawed. It's not fair. Well, that's kind of crazy. That's like a drug dealer that's a kingpin getting upset when thugs rat him out. I mean, obviously no one likes a snitch if you're the one getting snitched on, right? It's confusing. President Trump, are you on the side of the law or are you on the side of organized crime? Or maybe it's not confusing. Maybe it's super clear and in plain sight that the president sees himself as the mob boss in chief of the United States of America, where loyalty matters over all things. He said that Omarosa should be thrown in jail over the things that he said, over the things that she said she has recorded him saying. But that was not it for last week. It was also revealed that the president's current lawyer, Don Mcain, has been gone cooperating with Mueller extensively. The CFO of Trump's business, Alan Weisselberg, is also providing information to prosecutors. And David Pecker, the head of the National Enquirer, it turns out he's got a safe, a locked safe, full of information about Trump. But he's been granted immunity to provide as much information as he can on Trump, which is like, it's pretty much like a fire sale for a criminal. It's like, ooh, I get immunity, I can divulge all my secrets, and then at least those things can never be used against me. As a betting man, I bet that Brief News Brief viewers are more in touch with net neutrality news than the average person. But nonetheless, I'm going to review in case anybody forgot. Earlier this year, net neutrality ended, despite overwhelming opposition from the public. Many wondered what a future without net neutrality could look like, but did anybody think that net neutrality could save lives? I didn't think about that. Well, we found out last week that the devastating wildfires in California exposed that the cellular service provider Verizon Wireless was throttling the data used by the Santa Clara Fire Department, despite the firefighters having an unlimited plan, which, let me give you a little description. You might have an unlimited plan that gives you unlimited data at super high speeds until you pass a threshold. I don't know what the data is. Maybe it's 10 gigs, maybe it's 20, but once you pass it, they can throttle you to any speed that they want. The department's chief, Anthony Bowden, says that these bandwidth restrictions had a significant impact on our ability to provide emergency services, adding that Verizon did so despite being informed that the throttling was actively impeding firefighting efforts. Verizon reduced data speeds from roughly 50 megabytes per second to 30 kilobytes, or even slower. That's slower than dial-up speeds. Now, I'm also a betting man. I bet that the average Brief News Brief viewer is on the younger side of the bell curve and might not know what dial-up's like. But imagine a world in which you could click a link and expect to see a picture instantly, but instead you could count closer to a minute than not a minute. I would say roughly 30 seconds to get an image, depending on the resolution. Nonetheless, in response, the Santa Clara Fire Department contacted Verizon to alert them of this issue. They said they figured this has got to be an oversight. What kind of monster would do this to a fire department? But Verizon responded that it was aware of the throttling and it would only lift these restrictions when the fire department once it upgraded its service plan to a subscription that cost more than double the unlimited plan that they were already using at the time. And the fire department had no choice but to comply with these new costs. Some firefighters were forced to hastily buy data plans from other providers or to use their own personal plans in order to continue operations. The operations of which I'm not sure if you know what firefighters do, but they're saving lives and fighting fires. If this incident had occurred on June 28th or earlier, Verizon would have most likely been breaking the law. However, with the official repeal of net neutrality occurring on June 29th, it appears unlikely that the company committed an illegal act. Does greed supersede all else, including public safety?
Ah! Hello, I am Michel Grandderrier. Duchess Anne, the wildly wealthy wife of 2 French monarchs 500 years ago, literally lost her heart to a stranger when a thief stole its gold container from a museum. When plunderers purloined the priceless pomper last April, police persistently pursued the posers and repossessed the pillage, preserving it for posterity. It wasn't the first time thieves took the ticker. It was stolen right after the French Revolution. But, like now, authorities recovered the relic and made a cardiac arrest. They returned the vessel to the museum. I ought to go see it.
Over the weekend, we lost a treasured American hero, John McCain. Now, you didn't have to agree with John McCain to respect the guy, and that's why his death is touching so many Americans. Yet someone in Washington isn't as ready as others to embrace John McCain's legacy and achievements. In fact, yesterday, there was a bizarre move by the Trump administration. So they lowered the flag when John McCain died. But then early Monday morning, first business day, they raised it back to full staff. That's uncommon. It's very uncommon. They raised it all the way. They didn't think John McCain's death was worth a business day. Then Trump refused continually to make any comments about John McCain's death, and he stubbornly refused, even upon repeated requests from officials, even as high up as Vice President Mike Pence and John F. Kelly, the White House Chief of Staff. He refused to acknowledge Mr. McCain's death with a formal and unifying statement. But in the middle of the day, out of nowhere, the flag went back to half staff, and the president released a statement to try to put the matter behind him. And I didn't read the statement word for word, but let me just say probably this is what it said. It was probably something like, respect. I have the utmost respect for John McCain. I had so much respect that I wanted to do it thoroughly. No one seems to understand the word respect. First we lowered it to show him respect. Then we put it back up only so that we could embrace it and show him respect by re-putting it at half-mast. This is the most respect a president has ever shown to anybody in the world ever.